Oh shit, I have to open Audacity. I forgot the 3 hellos I always use. Son of a bitch. Hi, howdy, hello,
I think you
whatever
should
the
throw son of a
fucking
bitch
order
in
is.
there.
What up, motherfucker?
Son of a bitch.
Um,
How you doing?
son of a welcome everyone to the yet to be named show in which I bitch and moan about things that I hate, and random people are forced to listen to me. I am Tony B, Tony Brett, the GM for the Usual NPCs, a wonderful D&D live play. Is that the term? Live play?
Real play.
Real play.
Actual play.
Actual play. Yeah. For real play.
FR, FR.
and I am here today and in progressively in the future, depending upon how people like this, to complain ad nauseum about the game that I'm running. Not the game itself. The game itself is wonderful, but the system I'm running in, because I'm a spiteful son of a bitch. Today I have Jaime with me. Jaime, say hello.
Hi, I'm Nauseum.
That's fun. I like that. I have my drink of choice in hand. I have a big old mug of grog. There's about half a cup of rum in there, and it will be gone by the time this is done. So the intensity might go up as we go. We'll see what happens. So firstly, foremostly, Jaime, how do you feel so far from just what you know, what you've heard, just as a general vibe about the new system, D&D 2024, whatever the fuck that name is, in relation to 5e and the overall experience?
I am generally optimistic and positive. Yeah. It it reminds me of like old Windows versions, like like Windows 3, 3.1, 3.11. Like,
Yeah.
I think, like, no joke, I think that was like part of the marketing of 3.5, and like,
Mm-hmm.
I think that they're doing a similar thing for like Web 3 instead of saying like it's 5.5. But yeah, no, I think I'm
Mm-hmm.
generally positive on it. I'm not super duper informed on it. I run my games in uh a loose basis of 5th edition. So I don't know a lot about 4th edition. I played some 3.5, and
Mm-hmm.
I played a ton of other systems. But with respect to D&D, I really only have like game running experience in 5th edition, and so overall, I'd say
Gotcha.
looks cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think it fucking sucks. I think it's garbage. And I hate it. No, I actually I took extensive notes on the things I am furious
Okay.
with, as well as the things that I find to be incredibly lacking, as well as the one thing I like. There is one thing that I like, and we'll get to it. I have it in notes, all caps, positively, and wait till the end to find out. Uh, Firstly, foremostly, I do want to let everyone know that this first episode will be going up publicly on YouTube for people to enjoy, and whatever else we end up putting it on, Spotify's and stuff if we do. But in future, this will be a show that is largely a Patreon exclusive until we decide that it isn't. I don't know. So if you like this first episode and you want to hear more, subscribe to our Patreon, be a part, and you get more of whatever the fuck this is. So to start out, if I may make my first point, this is the overall. I'd like to call this the vibe check of D&D 2024. Firstly, foremostly, it's not a new edition. They keep saying that, and it's true because it's fucking barely different than 5th edition to begin with. It is clearly just a 5.5 in their own marketing. They either accidentally or otherwise refer to it as, I think, new 5 or something along those lines, where it's very obvious that this is just 5.5. Like it's really clear they've changed their marketing like 17 fucking times on it, and every time they pretend that they didn't change it. And it's clear that this is just them BSing with whatever is resonating with the audience. I actually think that my largest point, and what I hope to reinforce over this conversation to show what led me to this conclusion, is it feels, instead of creating a fun game and then building a marketing campaign around it, it feels like they built a marketing campaign and then made a game to fit that marketing. I generally find that the new edition is super milquetoast, super uninspired. Half of the things in the player's handbook and what's new in the new edition video that they released are just, this was something in Tasha's cauldron of everything. And now it's in the core handbook. And it's like, okay, so if I already own both those books, how much content am I actually fucking buying? It sounds like not a whole lot. So that's cool, I guess. I think that it has a lot of fake crunchiness. For those who aren't aware, the idea of a crunchy role playing game versus soft role playing game is how much you're doing bogged down in choices and numbers and the pen and paper part of the game. And I feel like 5.5, which I will be referring to it as, and no one can force me to say D&D 2024. I will fight you on that. So 5.5 is, I fucking lost my point already. Either way, uh, it's not good, and it feels like it's not interesting. It's not doing much. In fact, in some ways, I think it's making the game, for what I find interesting in a role playing game, worse, because it's giving you fake crunchiness. It's giving you the illusion of choice making and ideas and stuff like that without actually giving you much. That was my biggest issue with 5e, is I felt like every character at large could do a lot of the same shit. The fact that almost every time they wanted to add complexity to a class with subclasses, they just said, fuck it, give them spellcasting. And I think that a lot of that carries over into this 5.5, and some of it's made even worse. We'll get to some of my least favorite things about fighter and shit that just bypass having to make rolls to do things. I think a lot of it came from either a really good place of trying to fix things that people were complaining about, or a greedy place of trying to make things that people don't like go away in the laziest way possible to sell more stuff. um also fuck the Bastion system.
What's the Bastion system?
I'm glad you asked. The Bastion system is a brand new system they're adding that can eat my entire ass. Um Basically, the Bastion system is the Bastion system is a base building system, which
Oh,
at its core, I think the idea of giving your players a like base to work from, and like a guild or whatever of sorts to build up over the course of the game, is great. I think that's genuinely a wonderful thing. I think the way they did it here is dog shit. A lot of the mechanics in it are level locked,
mm,
which, in a role playing game in which obviously it's not like a hard simulation, right? And I get that. I don't want it to be a hard simulation. If I want that, I will play a game that is built around that. This is not that. This is a dungeon crawler. But at the same time, the idea of going, okay, I want to interact with the world. And the DM says, oh, interacting with the world, you say? Well, you'll have to wait till level 10. Why? Why? Why is it whether I have a house or a castle based on my level? Wouldn't it just be based around gold or resources or other shit like that? What the fuck? Also, the idea of they call them bastion turns, in which it is the DM will, at whatever time they choose, say, hey
oh,
players, make a bastion turn, in which you decide what goes on at your bastion. Fine. Not great, but fine. Except for a couple things. Firstly, bastion turns can be done wherever you are, even if you're nowhere near your bastion.
uh-huh.
This, as you are playing your character, gives you control over something that is nowhere near you and that you have no way of contacting. So you're just popping over to the minigame menu to play the Bastion system.
I
Secondly, and
love
this is
this.
something that.
I
Oh, go ahead.
absolutely, as described,
Fuck
I
you!
love it. I absolutely love it. Yeah,
Really?
have you
Okay, you
played
gotta
any
tell you
of
gotta tell me how you feel
okay,
it.
so there's Pathfinder has a pardon me. There's I don't know if it's a like an official supplement or if it's a like a homebrew fan made thing. But there's the I
Mhm.
can't remember what it's called. I have it somewhere. I have a book I'm still haven't unpacked all my boxes. But there's a like incredibly detailed mechanical guide for like town building and management of like a base. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
I hate it. I hate that system. And I think it's grotesquely over involved. It's hyper like mechanical, hyper specific, and like I understand that Pathfinder's balancing is drastically different than Dungeons and Dragons balancing, but like I hate when I hope to God my DM from my Pathfinder game doesn't hear this. I hate when it's like a session that we're just doing town stuff. It's so boring. Um I I really like this idea of so Bastion I think structurally is parallel to Lair, right? So like a Lair action is like a Bastion action.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah, that's the vibe we're getting. They haven't revealed much of the mechanics of it, just the
yeah,
idea of
yeah.
it. But effectively, it's what it seems like. Yeah.
And if a layer can have an action, I see no reason that a bastion can't. And like, I think especially if you are like working on like a lot of like interpersonal, like social network building in a town to build up a town, like you don't need to be there to see that shit managed. Like, yeah, sure, dude, I went off to go do shit. You guys farmed more wheat, you know. And I think that's cool. Like, I like it it honestly embodies something that I like about fifth edition in general, and something that I'm seeing like reiterated in 5.5, which is like
Mm-hmm.
simplifying mechanics. Um, in That's actually the wrong word. I actually shouldn't call it simplifying because it's much closer to dun 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 Noam Chomsky's linguistics program called minimalist syntax, which is what
Mm-hmm.
fifth edition
Yep.
is like the strongest for, I think, is
Oh yeah,
reducing
it's I think
everything down.
streamlining is the
Yeah,
best word
yeah,
for
yeah,
it.
yeah. It's
Yeah, not
minimalized.
necessarily simplifying to the point of removing mechanics, but streamlining to the point of it just flowing
Yeah,
naturally.
exactly. And I like the way you described it, you sold me on it. Like I'd never heard of it, and I was like, this is great.
Okay. So clearly there is a difference of playstyle and preference
Yeah, yeah.
here. Because I will tell a short story, the story of Thistlewood.
I'll know her.
You
Does she
see,
even go here?
so I was playing in a West March game, ran
Oh,
by my wonderful wife Victoria. It was really fun, really good. We were playing through basically a mix of missions from Elemental Evil, from Tyranny of Dragons, Rise of Tiamat, stuff like that. And in one of them, a town on the Moonsea, which I will never remember the name of, gets nuked. Town is gone. It is wasted away completely. So we come to the aftermath of that, and then a mission or two later, we find a bunch of goblins in a cave, and we naturally go the exterminate all the goblins route, except one of the members of our party happened to be playing a goblin, and they went, hey, how about you fucking not do
uh-huh.
that? So we ended up befriending them. And they were like, hey, well, where do we go now if we can't, like, terrorize and eat the people here? And we were like, well, there's this plot of land that is perfectly town sized we could send you to. And so we sent them there, and I proceeded to spend hours between this session and the next looking up as much as I could about medieval city planning, medieval economics, taxation, and professions on average in the makeup of a town to build up a 3-stage plan of genuinely constructing Thistlewood. Thistle being the goblin from our
Oh.
party. God King Thistle
Oh.
by the end of the campaign. Uh, so that kind of incredibly tedious, genuinely asinine city planning is beautiful to
Yeah,
me.
you know,
I love it so
that is a
much.
thing that I love. Like in
Mm-hmm.
you know, Civ, in City Skylines, like I will just lose weeks, right? Like doing
Mm-hmm.
that shit.
Yeah.
Oh god, what's the space version of the Europa whatever? Um
Oh, you're thinking of Spore.
no, not Spore. Spore's cool as fuck though. Uh
Spore's
yeah.
awesome. I need to buy
It's really
Spore and
cool.
re-download that.
No, but the I'm thinking of I can't remember what it's called. It's literally Europa whatever people they made it. I can't. It's been a long time since I played.
Oh,
Anyway, I love that
I'm
shit, and
not
I'll
familiar.
lose.
I've only played Europa Universalis.
What's that?
I've only played Europa Universalis 3. I don't know. I didn't know that they
Stellaris.
had. Oh! I didn't realize
I think
Stellaris was
it's
that.
them.
That
I
kicks
could be wrong.
ass.
I really don't know.
Hmm.
Don't quote me on
Fair enough.
that.
In that case, Stolen Valor, and it's their fault, not ours, for misquoting.
Fair enough. Um. Yeah. No. Like I love that. I love like when that's the game. But I also love. So I guess
But you don't want your in-person role play to be
it
that. You want that to be that.
it can be like there are times in games where
Okay.
like I have a character that I've made that is like invested in that or something,
Mm-hmm.
or I mean mostly it's stuff I don't think I would want to run that. Um. But like at the Pathfinder level, but like the people that I
Mm-hmm.
play with in Pathfinder tend to like doing that as like a session, so it gets like a little. I'm just like my character is checked out. Like the players, and I'm watching. Like it's cool that you're
Yeah,
watching.
absolutely.
It's cool that you're
Absolutely.
doing this. It's cool that like your characters are really invested in this. My character does not care. Like
That's fair, honestly.
she's just bored, and like she's gonna run away and
Mm-hmm.
get into trouble, and that's what's gonna happen. Um,
Yeah.
and it's I like I said, I like that my friends like it. But
Mm-hmm.
like as a player, I'm just like I don't want to
Yeah.
participate in like if it's a game like that, if it really is like a full blown mini game in the game, it's I guess
Mm-hmm.
sure, but like I don't mind crunchiness, right? I really like I played a Decker in
Yeah.
my first like the first time I played a TTRPG as an adult, not in like high school. I played a
Yeah.
Decker in a whatchamacallit game. What I can't remember the name. My brain's saying Warhammer. It's not Warhammer. Um, and
Yeah.
that's the crunchiest goddamn thing I've ever done, like ever, right?
Yeah.
So it's like
Yeah.
crunchy is fine. It can be invigorating. It's something I can invest it in, but like it's I think I keep going back to the same thought where it's like a lot of the rules in fifth edition are second to like the first two, right? And like the first two are like the DM, what the DM says goes, and like bring
Mm-hmm.
a second character or something to that effect, right? And it's like
Mm-hmm.
uh, everything else is sort of all the cool shit's built on to me. All the cool shit's built on like bones of the game system, you know.
Yeah.
But it's always like making more than what's in the book. So this sort of thing is
Yeah.
like
I get that.
in I think an invitation to players who like the style,
That's
you know.
fair. That's fair. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm supposed to be mad about things. How
Ah!
dare you? Yeah, no, that's I think that's the big thing is it's a difference in preference and play style there. Um I'm gonna I'm gonna I'm gonna level with the viewer for just a second. Um I'm not actually that mad about this. I think it's a little bland. I think it's a little uninspired, but I don't really hate it. And I don't really hate fifth edition. I think it's a little overhyped. But I think a lot of it just comes down to it's not for me. Um, it's a great system for homebrew. It's a great system to get people into the game, and it's a great system for if you want to just get people around to role play and have fun, because it's not very crunchy. And if you want a super crunchy dungeon crawler, there are systems for that. Pathfinder and 3.5 are really good for that. I mean, they're not incredibly crunchy, but they're crunchy enough to like facilitate that. Whereas 5e is like Jaime said, it's really minimalist in this way that really facilitates that kind of play. I just fucking hate it. I hate that shit. I find it infuriating. So
I love it. I love it. I love looking at something and being like, oh, what a cool idea. How could I change it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think 5e with a fuck ton of homebrew is super fun, but if I have to homebrew the shit out of your system to enjoy it, then I don't enjoy your system. I enjoy the creativity of other people that I can duct into your system. Uh,
I've noticed that the higher level my parties get, the more I'm
mhm.
homebrewing what's happening, right? So like I'll take like
Yeah, absolutely. Oh,
planar information
mhm.
or whatever and just homebrew the shit out of
Yeah.
that stuff. You know?
Oh, I think high level fifth edition is fucking garbage.
I would agree with you on
I
that.
its balance is ass. Everything becomes so powerful that it just stops being
Mm-hmm.
fun. Like doing a 20th level fight is really neat for the first fight because of all the crazy shit you can do, and then the second fight is immediately boring as
Mm-hmm.
sin because there's nothing interesting about it, because what does the fighter do? They walk up, attack 15 fucking times, and kill whatever they're looking at. And the first time you do that, you're like, roll, 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 attack, hit, 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 hit. And then the second time you're like, roll, roll, roll. Come on, let's get it done with. Um, Wizards, like having a huge ass spell book to dick around with, which by the way, I have about a million problems with the fifth edition wizard. I think it's genuinely one of the worst design classes I've ever fucked with. Um but like 20th level wizard, it's like, okay, I have a million spells at my disposal. I can do whatever the fuck
Mm-hmm.
I want. And then you go, oh hey, there's just an optimal way to play this. I cast like these two spells, they combo together and fucking annihilate whatever I'm looking at. Anything else I play is suboptimal, and I think playing suboptimal is good. I think you should always play suboptimally because it's more
I agree.
fun. But when you have fireball in your spell list, every time you look at a problem and force yourself to solve it without fireball, it's just staring at you on your fucking spell list being like, hey, you don't actually have to think, you could just cast fireball. um Fireball is, I think, as far as bang for your buck, other than like wish obviously, is the best spell in the game. I'd be willing to make that argument. It doesn't require any creative thinking. Its damage output is silly. Its range and its area of effect is fucking
Yeah,
hilarious.
yeah.
And other than the fact that a lot of things are resistant to fire damage, other than that one thing, it's hella busted. It's hilarious how busted it is, which I actually don't necessarily think is a problem. I just wish a few more things were as busted as Fireball, to justify it. I don't know.
Yeah.
I'm okay with spells being unbalanced. Like genuinely, I'm fine with spells being unbalanced. I just need there to be more than one spell on the top of the stack.
Yeah. And it puts a lot of work on the DM to be like, well, how do I make sure they don't just fireball? You know?
Exactly. That's one of the reasons that high level play sucks so
Yeah.
much, is because there's nothing your DM can do to account for like 15th level party or higher.
I have a
There's
14th level or
nothing in the DM's toolkit.
14th
Mhm.
level, about to be 15th level party. That is a game that I've been running since 2020. And
Mhm.
I have a fighter in that game who can do like 200 plus damage per turn, right?
Yeah.
There are times that I'm like, I'm going to invent a new rule, right? Where I'm just like, okay, here,
Yeah.
swords don't hurt people.
Yeah.
All metal
Yeah.
is
It's
rubber.
they're immune to all slashing
Yeah.
damage.
I found like there's like a really weird little tiny like I never even heard of it. Like there's like the silvered weapon rule, which is like
Yes.
the
Yes. Yes.
only
Yes.
thing that I've ever been able to like successfully implement against my fighter. to be like, this is actually going to be hard for you and therefore more enjoyable. Is like
Yeah.
they're immune to all slashing damage that isn't silvered.
Exactly. And that's the cool thing is that's where you're forced to think and use
Right.
tools. And that's genuinely awesome. That's actually one of the things that I like about two things. I'm going to shout out two things, right? Because one of the things I want to do with the series is not just bitch and moan, which I will be doing plenty of, and it will be great. But I also want to kick out recommendations of like, okay, if you, like me, fucking hate these things, what can you do to change them? I actually have specifically for 5.5, even though it's not released, I already have a change that if I ever run this garbage system, will be implementing, no question. But I want to be able to propose, hey, here's what I would do instead. Here's the system I would play instead if you prefer this effect. Here's the homebrew rule I would implement instead. So, the two things I will shout out is firstly, if you want to play 5th edition but want monster encounters that are more interesting and more fun, the MCDM. Um, that monster guide from them is fucking great. I played at a game called Desperate Foes that used this almost exclusively for its monster list, and every single one of those monsters was so much fucking fun to fight. They had weird abilities and senses and resistances and shit that just made it so that almost every time we had a fight, we had to think differently about how to approach it. We couldn't just do the same thing over and over again. We had to reach into our toolkit and play something else. The other thing is, honestly, second edition Pathfinder does something fucking dirt simple and makes it super interesting with it. Is it's utilizes resistances and immunities from monsters. It's just resistances in that game. I believe it's just like resistance 5 or whatever, and it just takes 5 less damage every time it's hit with it. But it really abuses those resistances. So it's like, oh, you want to fight a slime? I fucking hope you brought a bludgeoning weapon, because your slashing and piercing weapons will not do shit. And immediately it's like, okay, before I go into a fight, let's make sure I have a few different armaments, some with elemental damage runes put on them, some with different slashing versus bludgeoning versus piercing versus whatever, right? So that you can play around that. And it's simple, it's basic, but it's a really good change. Also, if you like spending way too much fucking time playing around with dumb pedantic shit, dude, Pathfinder Second Edition gives you so much fucking freedom to do that. You don't have to do that. There are plenty of classes and stuff that play relatively streamlined, but if you want that, the item crafting system's
It is really good.
amazing. Absolutely, creating a character with all the feats and things gives you so much cool shit you can do. Fuck, man, I love Pathfinder Second
I
Edition.
really don't.
It's really good.
It's fine. I don't hate it. It's just like, it's fine. I like playing games with my friends. It's fine.
One more thing before I go into individual classes. Okay, so two things actually. One small thing, one bigger thing. The weapon mastery system in 5.5 is a really it is a solve to a problem. The problem needs solved. This is a solution. I think it's implemented wrong.
How?
So, so the issue of, let's say you're playing a barbarian. I believe it's the Great Axe, I think. Don't quote me on that though. It's been a hot minute since I played a 5e barbarian. I think it's the Great Axe that just has the best damage output. Like just objectively amongst all the two-handed weapons. So if you are using a two-handed weapon, if you use anything but that, you're using a worse weapon, playing less optimally just for flavor. And that feels bad. Every time you look at a Great Axe and you're like, oh, that's just a better stat block than what I'm using now, but I want to use the weapon that's for my character's backstory or whatever. So their solution to this is the weapon mastery system. Again, for those in the viewership who haven't looked into it yet, the idea is If you're playing a martial class or take a special feat, you can get what's called weapon mastery, where you choose a weapon or two or three, depending upon what gave it to you. And you get a special effect passively with that weapon category. This way, it's like, oh, hey, this greatsword has graze on it, where even when you miss, it does damage. This maul or whatever has push on it, so that when you hit someone, you shove their ass. Like 10 feet, which is fucking ridiculous, honestly. And I mean ridiculous in a good way in this scenario. I love that. And so this way, there's an idea of like, okay, there's a benefit and a downside to every single weapon, and there's a reason to have 4 or 5 different weapons on you and swap between them. Except, and here is my issue. Firstly, I think the weapon masteries themselves are anywhere from fine to good. I don't like that they're passive. I wish that it was an either or choice, not a use it or just don't use it choice. Not just I'd rather not push the enemy. I prefer that because I like it when you have to make a choice and play risk reward consistently, and you just don't with weapon mastery. My other issue is if your goal is to encourage weapon swapping, and we're going to get into it, there is a ton of stuff that discourages weapon swapping. Namely, unless you're a fighter, you only get mastery in, I think, a maximum of 2 weapons, which means if you have a melee weapon and a ranged weapon, you choose it in those 2. So, how is weapon swapping encouraged? It isn't. You just have a passive on your weapon now. That's it. You just have an extra effect on your weapon always. And this is something that I genuinely despise. You can swap which weapon you have mastery in on long rest. So, normally, this kind of pick one idea means that if you are someone who has mastery with light weapons, with daggers or fucking whatever, and you're using daggers, and you pick up a rapier, normally you would have to make the decision, okay, is this magic rapier, this +1 rapier, fucking whatever, worth giving up my mastery to utilize? And the answer is, who gives a shit? Take a nap. Take a nap, use the rapier. It's fine. It's fine. And I hate that. I think, and this is where I said that before the game is even released, here's the homebrew rule to use that invalidates multiple features for multiple classes in a way that, frankly, I couldn't be bothered to give a fuck. I think this is the right way to play the game. If you have proficiency in a category, you get the weapon mastery. If you're proficient in simple and martial, you just get mastery in all simple and all martial weapons. Don't have to pick. Don't have to make a choice. You just get all of them. This way, that benefit of have an arsenal on your back and swap between them as you need is actually interesting.
It's kind of like attunement, though, right?
Yes, but this is where I will say yes, but with attunement, it's understood that you're going to pick up something that is genuinely special and attune to it, right? If it were that every single item in the game has attunement, we'd probably care a lot less about it. We'd probably be less interested in that mechanic. And I'm saying probably because I'm not omniscient. I don't know. That's my take on it. If your standard dagger that you get at level 1 had attunement, I feel like that just feel obnoxious rather than like a cool, interesting way to play it. Yeah.
I think
I go ahead.
since you're my DM, you have to be omniscient.
Yes, sir. That's a fair point. I'll give you that.
Or else I have a crisis of faith. Uh-oh.
Understandable. No, that's my honest take on weapon mastery is I think that the way it's limited, or if not, you have all of them, double the amount of weapons you get mastery in. Like if you're a barbarian, you don't get 2, you get 4. If you're a fighter, you don't get 3, you get 6. Maybe having it limitless means that everyone gets to be a walking arsenal, which makes the fighter less special. That's a fair criticism. Double it then. I just think that making it 2 for most martial classes, 3 if you're a fighter, defeats the purpose that I see in weapon mastery to begin with. So that's my recommendation is if you're gonna run 5-5, I don't give a shit what the rules are. Here's your homebrew to use before the game comes out. Is at bare minimum double the weapon mastery that classes get.
I could see it being 3 and then 4 for martials in general, and then fighters specifically.
Mhm.
But I think the
Yeah.
balance that's trying to address is that like martials they sort of lose out on like what higher level like casters can do, right? As the game
Mhm.
goes on.
Yeah.
Like and I think there's something to like giving it that parallel that like that casters might be more focused on.
Yeah.
In that like yeah, I think maybe if you just made it like 3 slots and then give the fighter 4, or give the fighter just like whatever they're proficient in, not 4,
Yeah.
that would work.
Because if your goal is to make the fighter a walking arsenal with a rule like this, which is by upping it from 2 to 3 is clearly the idea. Limiting it to 3 just means you get your longbow, you get your greatsword, and you get your flail. And like that's not a walking arsenal. That's a dude who's mildly prepared.
I did the
So
homework.
like
What?
exactly. So that's where like immediately like upping it to 4, or I'm more liberal with it, I'd say 6, but either way immediately means that it's like, okay, you got your javelins, your longbow, your short sword, your great axe. Immediately there's decision making. Oh, we're fighting a fuck ton of goblins. Cleave with the great axe. Oh, we're fighting one big dude. I don't know what the long swords is. I don't think they've said it yet, but long
Right.
sword. Um, they're far away, but I want them to not run away. Slow on the javelins, or they're far away and they're determined to fight me. Whatever the fuck longbows get. Like that, there are options in both ranged and melee, or you forego the range and go, I'm just going to have all of the good melee ones at my disposal. Awesome. That's decision making. That's fun in the moment to go, okay, what's actually going to help me here? How do I choose this risk reward? Maybe you normally go into battle with the greatsword's graze that deals damage if you miss. Cool. But then every once in a while, especially if you have a really good DM that sets up really fun battle maps, you'll run into a scenario in which there are a bunch of dudes on a raised up area or by a cliff, and you're like, well, this is a great opportunity for push. The way that I always this is my litmus test, if you will, for a good role playing game. I like to talk about player to player interactions and player to system interactions. Player to player is obvious. It's whenever you're interacting with another player or interacting with the game master. Player to system is when you're doing the mechanics in the book. For example, in the action that is doing an attack, you say, I would like to attack that guy. DM says, okay, cool, make your rolls. You do your rolls, and the DM goes, you hit them and their guts spill out over their asshole. In that interaction, the description, the setup of the combat itself, all of that is actually player to player because that's all designed by your game master. The player to system is you throwing a die, comparing the number to another number, and then throwing damage die if you succeeded. Is that interaction fun? And my perfect test for this is, and when I say perfect, I mean deeply flawed, very shallow, but I'm going to call it perfect because I'm also deeply flawed and very shallow. Is if I put you in a room, your character in a room, and in front of you is a guy with a sword and shield, and behind him, 20, 30 feet, whatever, is a dude up a flight of stairs with a bow and arrow. how many different ways can your character handle that situation without just making aggressively stupid decisions. Obviously, you can handle the situation a bunch of different ways if you're just an idiot, but like if you're a fighter, if you're, let's pick one of the worst ones, champion fighter, how many different ways realistically can you tackle the situation? One, if you're really creative. Two, that means that player to system interaction is just kind of bland because it's never going to give you that much variety. Um, Whereas if you have an incredible variety of weapon masteries, this becomes interesting because now there's a decision to make. What if you throw a javelin at the sword and shield guy, give him slow, work your way around him since he can't catch up with you since he's slowed down, so you can take out the archer without much resistance? What if you use the maul or whatever it is that is push to shove the sword and shield guy into the archer, pop your great axe out, and start cleaving through both of them? Or you just do the normal way, go ham on the sword and shield dude, and then go after the archer. These are all cool decisions and cool interactions that you can have before you even consider what your subclass or anything does. You play a battle master, immediately these options broaden even more. That's cool, but when you're limited to 3 masteries at most, a lot of that goes away. And so that is my argument for A, why I think 5e kind of sucks, uh, and B, why I think that your number of masteries should be broadened. Bare minimum to the 3 or 4, potentially to like 4 to 6, or if you're a madman like me, bucket all of them. Honestly, I'm more partial on doubling it now the more I've talked it through. But either way, you get the idea.
I have all of the subclasses been
go ahead.
announced? I don't at point of
No.
recording.
Oh, sorry. They've all been, not all of them have been announced. For every class they've done a reveal on, they've announced the 4 subclasses for. They've not gone into the nitty gritty. Obviously, none of the nitty gritty of the rules are revealed, but they've gone into the general idea of each. And I have it all written down. Well, I don't have all the subclasses written down. I only wrote down what I thought was interesting. But yeah, they've like for the fighter, pally, rogue, and
warlock. Yeah.
Fuck, I forgot to look at warlock. I don't have notes on warlock, guys. Sorry.
I think there's something that I saw in the rogue, the way that it was being described and the way that the thing, it made me.
Oh, I promised one positive, so we will talk about the rogue for a second. But go ahead.
It was just the way that they split the rogue subclasses out made me think that like with this was like something I learned after I learned about the weapon mastery, and I was like, I think I understand that they're building sort of like a more mechanical distinction between casters and marshals here, and like even in cases where you have like half casters or whatever, like a rogue, like a what do you call it, a arcane trickster.
Trickster,
like I guess it's a half caster, but like the rogue has, I think the rogue's weapon mastery thing is really cool. Like it reminds me of, it's very like how I play Asterion in BG3. It's the Nick mastery, which is that without taking an action or a bonus action, you can like just do like 3 points of damage or something. It's, I don't quote me on that. It's something like that, where it's like they just do a little bit of damage.
Is it the bleed thing?
They call it Nick.
Or no. Yeah, you're right. It's Nick. I'm sorry. I'm confusing two things. Yeah. No. I'm actually I'm gonna briefly touch on the rogue, if that's okay, just for a second to wrap this up. Because I have one more big complaint about the system overall. But I have, of all the things I hate, and I really dislike a lot of stuff about the rogue, there's one thing about the rogue that I think is fucking awesome. Actually, it is. Allow me to. I have notes. I have 3 pages of notes, listeners. I took pages of notes on. I probably wrote more in my notes than they wrote in their fucking articles. Um, it's mostly spiteful. I'm sorry. I would like to just raise this up to the camera. Devious Strikes is fucking
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
good. Dude, the devious strikes and the cunning strikes is
Yes.
exactly what I fucking want out of this. Everything that I complain about, like, how many ways can you actually tackle problems? Zero? Wow, what a bunch of bullshit, is 100% covered by devious strikes and cunning strikes, I think it is.
Yeah.
So for the listener who hasn't read the article yet, the idea is when you're a rogue, you have what's called sneak attack. Whenever you have advantage on attack, which they've even like said in their design philosophy, they're giving you a billion fucking ways to gain advantage. You are intended to have advantage basically all the fucking time from what they're saying. Whenever you have advantage as a rogue, you get extra damage via sneak attack. This system and these two sets of features allow you to burn your extra sneak attack dice for a different effect instead. One of them is poison, and I think it's 1 or 2d6.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, oh, you go up to do your sneak attack, pacha. And instead of getting your 2d6 damage at that low level, you can go, I'm going to forgo that damage. I'm going to poison them. The first 3 you get are poison, trip, and
Those are the ones that I remember. That's it.
third
I didn't
one.
even
Yeah,
remember there
there's
was
a third one. Oh no, I remember it. It's to back away, to dodge away,
Oh,
to hit and then pop. Yeah, fucking
that's
awesome.
cool.
Like, what a genius fucking thing. And you get more sneak attack dice as you level up. So you'll be doing more and more damage, which means you have more and more resources to trade. Because at I think 7th level, and don't quote me on that, you can do 2 effects instead of 1, which means you can rush up, hit, poison, dodge back, or rush up, trip, dodge back to let someone else jump in. And then at a higher level, you get devious strikes, which adds 3 more options that are all stealth based options, including a knockout. There is a codified knock unconscious mechanic in the game via the rogue, and that is genius. That is so fucking perfect. In the episode where we start going into classes, I will complain about a million other things with the rogue, but with all of the other complaints I have about this system, about 5e, about 5.5, about everything in between, that is the one thing that covers most of my complaints. All of my complaints about it being milquetoast, about it being uninspired, about it being uninteresting to play, fucking cunning strikes and devious strikes 100% work around. I wish there was more. I wish every single class had an equivalent. Fighter gets Battlemaster, which is similar. Fighter is, you can use their second wind charges to get other effects. I actually don't think it's implemented that well. I think it's fine at best. But like this philosophy of, okay, let's give them a resource and force the player to resource manage with that and make decisions. Make decisions in the heat of combat, make decisions as they play, is exactly what I want out of a role playing game. And I think the rogues' cunning strikes and devious strikes keep the really fun, streamlined, easy to get into flow, but add that decision making into it. And I'm not saying I want everyone to have those features specifically, but the way that a caster has 100 spells to choose from, even though the wizard is built like shit and sucks and is terrible and should be deleted from the fucking game, the rogues, cunning strikes, and devious strikes should have something that feels like that in all of the martial classes, because it accomplishes that same idea of having options, having to make choices. I will never stop hating on Champion Fighter because fuck Champion Fighter. They attack things, and that's the game for them. Fuck Champion Fighters. And this is what gets around that. This idea, this kind of thinking is what gets around that. So there you go. That's the one redeeming redeeming piece of 5.5 is cunning strikes and devious strikes make the rogue class infinitely better. Not slightly better,
Drastically.
infinitely better across the board. Absolutely. They are fun to play. If I am ever forced to play 5.5 at gunpoint, likely I will allow them to kill me. But if like they're threatening to kill my family or something, I'm playing a rogue.
So I guess the natural question here is: are we transitioning to 5.5?
Jaime, Jaime, how about you run your own fucking podcast?
I did, and it didn't go well. Okay.
So the honest answer, like the genuine honest answer is, and this is one of my complaints about 5.5. I feel like your critical roles and dimension 20s of the world are part of what 5.5 is built
Yeah.
around. I absolutely feel like part of the consideration for building this system is what makes for a good podcast, what makes for a good show. Which I hate. I don't hate the shows. They're wonderful shows. Anyone who says that Matt Mercer ruined D&D is a fucking troglodyte moron. Now, there is a genuine argument to be made about the impact he has had, but he has not ruined D&D. People have ruined D&D. And also D&D is not ruined. It was ruined as soon as 5th edition came out. Boom, got him.
I could see that kind of being true, but also, I mean, just because it's a little bit more, I feel like one of the design themes is that it's a little more cinematic, and a little more like heroic.
I think go ahead.
You know?
Yeah, I think it's very cinematic. And we'll definitely get into this more when we talk about classes. Yeah. But I think a lot of the ideas of the random element that causes some level of feel bads is gone in a way that is kind of bland. I think getting rid of feel bads is a good thing. I think the way they did it, and we'll get into this in episode 2, is just really fucking boring and uninspired. And I think that's part of what it is creating a system in which those cool moments will always happen, especially when we talk about the fighter. Fuck the fighter. Fuck the fighter a million fucking times. Fuck the fighter. In my closing argument, I would like to say fuck the fighter. No, so that's the thing, right? Is I feel like it's built to work incredibly well in that podcast show format. So the honest to goodness answer is, if the person who I say runs the podcast, right? I'm the dungeon master, right? I make the game itself, but the actual producer of the podcast itself is Spencer. Fitzgerald Rollins is the owner of the podcast and Paths Mosaic in general. So if he says, "Hey, I'd like to switch to the new system because it's what's hot and popular right now," I will oblige, because I'm nice and good and kind. But I will homebrew the shit out of it literally minute one. You can bet your fucking tits mastery is changing.
Have you heard of DC-20?
I'm not familiar with DC-20. I've been looking a lot at Ironsworn and the Dark Souls board game for a lot of my inspirations. But please, what is DC-20?
It's a system that was recently published, I believe. I haven't looked at it very much. I just skimmed like articles here and there about it, but people seem to consistently refer to it as like the way that 5e should have been updated.
Interesting.
And
I just made a note of it so that I can look that up later.
It seems like, from what I've seen, it seems interesting. I'll just say that. I don't know much about it. I really have like
no, I'm more than happy to take a look. That's exciting.
Understanding of it.
I'm always happy to learn a new system.
So yeah, that's all. I'll leave you on that note. It looked cool. I liked
No,
it.
no, no,
It looked
absolutely.
cool.
Yeah, no, I'm interested. Yeah, absolutely. So that's my thing is like if the request from Spencer is, "Hey, we'd like to keep current. We're going to play 5-5 because that's what's new and hot." I will oblige. I will homebrew the shit out of it. If no request is made and we just leave things as is, I'll keep running 5e because frankly, if I'm being bluntly honest, crunchy systems, the crunchier it is, the worse it is for a podcast or
Yeah.
actual play. Because nothing is less interesting when listening. If you're one of the weird niche viewers that likes listening to people debate numbers for an hour, I love you. Kudos to you. You're a hero and a saint. Keep on the way you are. If you're the rest of the human race, um, I it's not fun to listen to someone say, "I would like to make an attack roll. Because I have this feat and this feat, I'm going to get a +5 and then a -3 to the roll. But due to dual wielding, I'm actually going to take another -5 on top of that. And as it is my second roll for the turn, I'm taking another -5. But due to circumstance check, I also get a +10 on top of that. So I'm going to make my roll." Like, that's boring as shit, dude. Like, it's what I love to play. If I were a player, I would love that shit with every fiber of my being. It's the reason I like Pathfinder 2nd Edition so much, but it is fucking cancer for an actual
Yeah,
play.
it could, like, I'm just imagining, yeah. Everything you just described is a conversation in a Pathfinder game. Like, and I'm like, oh, that would be so boring.
I just fucking realized I've had my usual NPCs snowy background on this entire time.
Oh,
I could have changed it to
it's funny.
anything, but I guess I'm just always cold now.
It's where we live.
Where we live. It's who we are. God, I wish it were fucking cold. The place we are in, not sharing, is way too fucking hot right now.
I have to say that's a pretty universal statement at the moment. Uh,
Yeah, exactly. That's why
yeah.
it's safe. It's
I will
safe.
say I went out this past weekend and was cold. So I'm not where you guys are, and where I am.
Oh, I fucking forgot about
Yeah.
that. I forgot you're not the place where
I
we
went out
are.
like expecting it to be 95
I'm
degrees.
keeping it nondescript so it's safe for stream.
I was expecting 95 degrees. I wore a tank top and little shorts, and I was like, "Oh God, I'm cold." Like, I'm actually cold.
So for me, right, the maximum temperature I can handle is 70 with a breeze. Ideally, I like to be in the 60 to
No,
65
that's
range.
one
Fahrenheit.
Fahrenheit. Yeah, yeah. You know, about halfway to boiling. No, that's how I am. I am not built for heat at all, and the biggest difference between here and there is that there is less humidity and it's a little bit colder. So like when it's really really hot here, it's not as humid and it's not quite as hot like from the go.
I'm going to have a pun wholly intended hot take here. I prefer humidity.
Well, I have to go. I'm sorry.
I would I would rather a humid heat than a dry heat. I'm sorry. It is what it is. I genuinely I I don't know what it is. I dry heat. Maybe it's because I have like relatively dry skin. My hands dry really fast. My like nose dries out and like starts bleeding really fast. I am a lizard. I am
Can
a
you shoot
lizard man.
blood from your eyes?
You bet your tits I can.
You know what?
On my stances on 5th edition and 5.5, I will stand by them no matter what, and I will fight anyone who disagrees. On this, I acknowledge I'm wrong.
Oof. Just like I love the sweat. I love it.
Baby, If I'm gonna be hot, I might as well be wet too.
Okay, fair.